Hi, and welcome to North of 48. It's November the 29th. It's about minus 20 where I am, Celsius, that is. We're going to put our toe out into the DEI waters. And you have to be careful with this because there's a lot of pushback or a lot of people, they take things the wrong way. So I just got a story that I read, and it's really disturbing. To me, and it's from the Daily Mail has it, but the Free Press in Canada has it about two people and disastrous outcome in this story. So just bear with me, and please leave your comments below if you find this on the podcast or on YouTube. By all means, I would appreciate it very much. I'm just trying to make sense of it all myself. You know how in school, certain people get bullied, even teachers? We had a teacher that people would throw pennies under the door. Um, so this was in the 70s. And as a response to, I guess, him being cheap, maybe, I'm going to just say he was thrifty with his money. There were other people, especially if they were perhaps had some gay-like or feminine qualities and they were a boy. They would be extra bullied. Through the years, we hear of people who identify as trans and stuff, and unfortunately, the people end their lives over being bullied or harassed. It's a real thing. In the adult world, we see bullying and harassment at our work. Sometimes maybe based on the color of our skin, the way we talk, or perhaps it's just you got a dick for a boss. That could be it too, who's a narcissist. You know. Um, this story here, though, is really upsetting, I think, in a lot of ways, especially for it being played out in Canada. And the story involves a principal who came back, who was retired, and he was enjoying his time, and he came back to help out in the Ontario school system. And a person with diversity training. We have some audio for it on it. And for those of you watching video, this is Richard Bilkszto, a Toronto school principal. And for those who are listening to audio only, he's a Caucasian fellow. And this lady, a daughter of Nigerian and Trinidad parents, is a DEI trainer. And she is the principal consultant for Kojo Concepts, which specializes in supporting organizations around the world to achieve equitable outcomes for their staff and clients. She has sometimes described internal racism as a byproduct of colonialism, and anti-African sentiments within the Caribbean community was a constant presence, including suggestions that sometimes later colored blacks from the islands were preferable to any shade of black from Africa. This began her thinking about race as a social construction and how whiteness as dominant and ideal had been developed through colonialism and slavery, while she sought to understand why people make such arbitrary distinctions. So that was her upbringing and what her basis for her understanding of race as a causation leads her and to her projects, I'm assuming. Now, Richard, age 60, was an experienced principal with Toronto School Board. He worked for the board for 24 years, mostly focusing on adult education. He retired from his position in 2019, but continued to work as a substitute principal after that. His lawyer released that a superintendent of the Toronto School Board said that Bilkszto had proven his excellence in equity, instruction, entrepreneurship, student engagement, and breaking new ground for communities where chronic struggles, mental health, and newcomer status often brought more frustration than success. and he advocated to bring people together through a more equality-focused pro-human support. Richard was he was a gay teacher but socially progressive. So they were at a conference on April 26, 2021, and Ojo Thompson was explaining how Canada was a more racist country than the United States. She says Canada is a bastion of white supremacy and colonialism. The racism we experience is far worse here than there. She said Canadians might find it difficult to see that this reality, given its ties to the monarchy, which, according to her, is the very heart and soul and origins of the colonial structure. Richard disagreed. He said that based on his personal experience in a predominantly black high school in Buffalo, New York, tax regimes, statistics, and facts and figures, he considered Canada a far more just society. After some back and forth on the issue between the two, Ojo Thompson said, "You and your whiteness think that you can tell me what's really going on with black people. Like, is that what you're doing?" Richard reiterated what he had said without changing his position, and another attendee told him that the experience of black and indigenous peoples were still not good enough. Now, I have some audio that I'm going to play, and so bear with me.
The racism is we experience it far worse here than there. So I know that's going to be a hard one for people to wrap their head around, but that's the level of white supremacy. Like, Canada's a bastion of white supremacy and colonialism. Like, they at least had a fighting posture against at least the monarchy. Here we celebrate the monarchy, the very heart and soul and origins of the colonial structure. Think about that. Right, and all that it represents. We hold it dear still.
I just want to make a comment about the Canada-U.S. thing, and I have a little bit of a challenge of it. I did my student teaching in the U.S. and have spent a lot of time in the U.S. And to say here, honestly, that Canada is not a more just society than the United States is, and we talked about facts and figures. I invite everyone here to do some research, and you look at things. Yeah, absolutely. And look at things like education, and look how more, you think about a system we have in Ontario where every student is funded equally. You go to the United States, they're funded based on their tax base, right? And I see you're shaking your head, but I taught in Buffalo.
What I'm saying, sir, is that why I'm shaking my head is that it absolutely matters what community you live in Ontario.
That's not what I said. What I said was...
I'm not arguing what you said. Yeah. What I'm saying is, because I'm talking about the principle of your point. Yeah. It's not about what you said. This is not a court of law. The principle of your point is that you can base it on, well, they have this tax system, and that's true. What I'm saying to you is that what racialized people experience in this province is that it absolutely matters where you live. So it's not, so the fact of the tax system is not untrue. What you're saying is not untrue, but how it's lived out in Ontario is not as you say, is all I'm saying, is that the Jane and Finch kids are not having the same experience as the Forest Hill kids. They're just not. And that's despite our equal laws. In that way, it's worse, because we have fake equality, or in the name of that equality, kids are still experiencing systemic inequities. So that's the point.
I understand when I hear what you're saying, right? However, I think to ignore that fact, right, that we talked about here about, capitalism, socialism, we're very happy here. We have a public education system where everyone is funded the same way. It's not like that in the United States. We have a healthcare system here where everyone has access to healthcare. It is not the same way in the United States. So to sit here and say, all honesty, we're talking about facts and figures, and to walk into the classroom tomorrow and say, Canada's just as bad as the United States, I think we're doing an incredible disservice to our learners. Disservice to our learners. And again, that's what I want to say that, right?
Thank you so much.
Right.
What I'm finding interesting is that in the middle of this COVID disaster, where the inequities in this fair and equal healthcare system have been properly shown to all of us. I mean, so it's just so what's fascinating is, and this is why we're in this place that we're in, is that you think, so we're here to talk about anti-Black racism, but you and your whiteness think that you can tell me what's really going on for Black people? Like, is that what you're doing? Because I think that's what you're doing, but I'm not sure. So I'm going to leave you space to tell me what you're doing right now.
Exactly. I just wanted to make the point. You were talking about the United States,
okay,
and I just wanted to do a comparison. And as I said, you talked about facts and figures, and listening to the facts and figures. And I think if everyone here looks at the facts and figures and all kinds of studies, and you'll see we're a far more just society. We have room for improvement. Absolutely. Are we racist and everything? Absolutely.
Great. This is Andrew from Provoke Institute.
Yeah.
Just to look up everything that Keith has been saying. We're not here to compare. We're not here to say this is worse than the next one. And listen, we hear what you're saying, but facts and figures. Who did these studies? Right? Fair to whom? Just to whom? A Black or Indigenous student in the TSB has the same access to education as a white student, but they don't have the same outcomes. Right? Disproportionately affected by streaming, in-school suspensions which are not tracked by the ministry appropriately, all kinds of other metrics. So I hate to disagree with you in this forum, but it's just not relevant what you're bringing up. And unfortunately, the experience of Indigenous, Black, and racialized students in the TSB, probably in whatever school you lead, are just not good enough. And that's just the reality. So I think if we want to be an apologist for the United States or Canada, this really isn't the forum for that.
Now, in April of 2021, the school district had hired Kaiki Ojo-Thompson, the diversity trainer in the audio, to carry out 4 two-hour sessions for school leaders, charging $15,000 for each session. After the session, Cheryl Robinson Petrazzini, the executive superintendent of education, thanked Ojo-Thompson for enlightening them, and she tweeted, "When faced with resistance to addressing anti-Black racism, we can't remain silent as it reinforces harm to Black students and families." And she said, "Thank you, Kojo Institute, for modeling the discomfort administrators may need to experience in order to disrupt anti-Black racism." She has since deleted the tweet, and friends of Richard Bilkszto said that the tweet had hurt him deeply. Bilkszto's public shaming was also compounded at a third session where Ojo-Thompson said that his comments were a teachable moment. One of the ways that white supremacy is upheld, protected, reproduced, upkept, defended is through resistance, she says. And Richard just recently came out of retirement to help the school system as well. I in no way seen any racism in his comments. He was just commenting on the difference between Canada and the United States, in his opinion, having worked in both systems. And Kojo took it to the extreme. She laughed and added, "I'm so lucky that we got perfect evidence, a wonderful example of resistance that you all got to bear witness to, so we're going to talk about it because, it doesn't get better than this." After the third session, Richard filed for sick leave and missed the fourth and final session. He filed a complaint with school officials saying that he'd been harassed. Ontario's Workplace Safety and Insurance Board investigated and in August of 2021 concluded that Thompson's behavior, the DEI trainer, was abusive and amounted to workplace harassment. Bilkszto was awarded 7 weeks of lost pay. Friend said he never got over the humiliation of being labeled a white supremacist, and the confrontation ate away at him. In April of this year, he sued the Toronto District School Board, citing Thompson's defamatory statements and the unwillingness of administrators to defend him, despite previously praising him. He was highly decorated principal. Richard has suffered and will continue to suffer damage to his character and reputation, both personally and professionally, the lawsuit states. As well, he's been subjected to embarrassment, scandal, ridicule, contempt, and severe emotional distress. He died before the case could be concluded of a self-inflicted death in July. Which brings me back to my point. People with power who feel that they're righteous, they can do so much to mentally disturb someone to the point of killing themselves. I would think that we never know the mental faculties of someone. I would like to know your comments. If you can put them there. Was Richard in the wrong? I don't think he was. But Kaiki Thompson is now bragging that she's been hired as a human capital partner at Deloitte Touche in Toronto, which provides consulting services to some of the largest corporations and government agencies in Canada. And the company's clients in the U.S. include Boeing, Microsoft, Morgan Stanley, Berkshire Hathaway, and MetLife. If some of you subscribers who've been a fan of the show for a while know that we sympathize with our Indigenous brothers and sisters, especially the murdered and missing Indigenous who won't be coming home, as well as people who are minorities and people who need a helping hand, the homeless, etc. In this case, I find it egregious what happened to Richard and the way he ended up. And so instead of color, can we just look at it as a case of a person having the power to shame another person and that person feeling really dejected? What do you think? Let's keep the conversation going. It's an issue that we need to understand because it's rampant. The American election was probably part of that, but our Canadian election is coming too. But just as people, we need to understand what other people are going through in this life. And I don't think the color of your skin should be indicative of it. Even though we have different perspectives, we're in different environments. Is there a place we can come close together to have this discussion? Take care. May Richard rest in peace. Bye.